Following on from the innovations of U-Roy, Dennis Al Capone, I-Roy, and others in further fleshing out the role of the reggae DJ or talkover artist, chatting, toasting, rapping, if you will, their lyrics over a pre-recorded song or piece of music. The next major innovation in the craft of the DJ would come in the form of a charismatic, tall, dreadlocked, openly Rastafarian DJ sporting red, gold, and green implants in his front teeth and going by the name of Big Youth. Stay tuned for my look at Jah Youth. More than perhaps any other DJ to that point, Big Youth would completely redefine what reggae DJing could be, building on from the parameters laid down by his immediate predecessors, U-Roy, I-Roy, Dennis Al Capone, who had taken the jive talk, the catchphrases, the exhortations to dance of the original DJs and fleshed those out into fully developed songs that could then become a commercial force on record. Big Youth wanted to take this a step further, add more substance to what the DJs were saying, begin to promote a message of love and unity against oppression. And to do this, he would employ a wide range of influences in his lyrics, from nursery rhymes to Jamaican folk sayings and proverbs, even nonsensical sing-song bits of doggerel meant to ride the rhythm, something like a motorbike weaving through the crowded streets of Kingston, and with something of a jazz sense of improvisation, drawing from a diverse range of influences that would expand and expound on what DJing could be. He was born Manly Augustus Buchanan in downtown Kingston, Jamaica in 1949, would spend all his life in the downtown ghetto areas. His father was a policeman who had little involvement in his upbringing. His mother was a preacher who had her own congregation. The family would move around a bit as she built her congregation. From her, he would inherit a deep sense of spirituality and something of the preacher's manner of speaking to an audience, to a crowd, but his own spirituality would go in a more individual direction as he gravitated toward the Rastafari elders that he would encounter in the downtown ghetto areas, particularly one of the daughters of Leonard Howell, considered the founder of Rastafari, who attended his mother's church. He would soon encounter other Rasta elders in the downtown areas they would frequent, such as Mortimer Plano and others, and soon would completely devote himself to the movement, begin to grow his dreadlocks at a very young age, long before it was fashionable to do so, and cite Rastafari. This would cause some conflict with his mother. He would end up leaving school by the age of 13, begin to learn the trade of a mechanic, initially working at a taxi company. One time he was beaten severely with a tire iron by a co-worker, had to recuperate at home. Once he had done so, he plotted revenge. He spent 2 days circling around his father's house, trying to scheme a way to break inside and obtain his father's gun to exact his revenge. Thankfully, a cooler head prevailed. Eventually, he would go to work at the Sheraton Hotel in Kingston, begin working on diesel engines. By this point, he had discovered the local sound systems, begin developing an interest in music and envisioning himself as a performer on the sound systems and their open air dances, where the DJs would get up on the microphone and chat lyrics and move the crowd to greater heights of enjoyment. While on the job, he would begin experimenting with his voice in the elevator shaft, learning how to throw his voice, how to use echo, beginning to work on his lyrics. Due to his physical size at such a young age, he was already around 6 feet, his co-workers nicknamed him Big Youth due to his young age and his physical size, and it was under that name that he would begin his performing career. initially on a downtown Kingston sound system called Lord Tippertone Hi-Fi. By the time Youth became a performer on Lord Tippertone's sound system, the selector was Jah Wise, and the sound would sometimes clash with rival King Tubby's hometown hi-fi, the sound system of the great King Tubby, which had originally featured U-Roy as its resident DJ. U-Roy was absent in England at that time, so his place had been taken by I-Roy, and there were many memorable clashes between the two sounds as Big Youth continued to develop his very cultural, openly Rastafarian sense of lyrical style and delivery, moving the crowd by chanting to Jah. This was a time when Rastafari was still very underground. Some of the DJs, the other DJs, were devout Rastafarians themselves, U-Roy for one, but openly chanting about Jah and issues of Africa and black identity, still somewhat controversial at that time. Big Youth threw caution to the wind and made that a central facet of his lyrics from the very beginning. By 1972, he would get his first chance to record, initially through Gregory Isaacs, who in partnership with another struggling up-and-coming singer named Errol Dunkley were beginning to form a label they would call African Museum. Initially, he had wanted a young ghetto producer by the name of Jimmy Radway had wanted Big Youth to record for him. Gregory Isaacs beat him to the post and got Big Youth to record his first song over a version of Errol Dunkley singing a song, his classic song, Movie Star. Big Youth would voice it as Movie Man, the next version with him chatting his lyrics over Errol Dunkley's record. Shortly after, Jimmy Radway would finally grab Big Youth into the studio and record Big Youth chatting over another big hit for Errol Dunkley, a song called Black Cinderella, which Big Youth would voice as the best Big Youth for producer Jimmy Radway. That song included on the Essential Jimmy Radway Productions compilation called Keep the Pressure Down. Jimmy Radway, one of the young grassroots up-and-coming reggae producers beginning to put out a compact but highly regarded body of music, would record Big Youth's second song, The Best Big Youth, and a further one called Tribulation, voicing over Helen Sorrell by Hortense Ellis. Very first record, Movie Man for Gregory Isaacs, had been unsuccessful. His second for producer Jimmy Radway, toasting over Errol Dunkley's Black Cinderella, was moderately more successful, began getting him notice and further opportunities to record. Lee Perry would place him over top of the Wailers' Keep On Moving to release Moving Version. The Wailers themselves would tap Big Youth on a couple of sides, very early sides, one over their song Craven Choke Puppy, another on Bunny Wailer's Bide Up, I believe. The next up-and-coming grassroots level music producer who would sense that Big Youth's star was on the ascent was a producer named Phil Pratt, who would recruit Big Youth on a few sides of his own productions, including Keep Your Dread, showing Big Youth's Rastafarian philosophy and imagery fully in effect. Love Jaja Children, included on a DJ compilation of Phil Pratt Productions. Big Youth, Love Jaja Children, here on red vinyl on the Burning Sounds label, all Phil Pratt DJ sides here. Tell It Black would place Big Youth over top of another up-and-coming singer by the name of Dennis Brown, doing a cover of a Fleetwood Mac song called Black Magic Woman. This would mark the beginning of a close association between Big Youth and the music and the person of Dennis Brown. The Phil Pratt thing side by Big Youth would name check the producer and later give its name to a 2000 compilation by Pressure Sounds containing some of his sides for Phil Pratt, including Keep Your Dread, Love Jaja Children, and the title track itself, Phil Pratt Thing, which we also have here as a blank label 7-inch on the Sounds United label. This is Big Youth, Phil Pratt Thing, name checking the producer.
Yeah, dread. I read. Now this had to be the Phil Pratt Thing. Can this a thing to keep you rocking? Can this a thing to keep you swinging? Come when I tell you about the thing and down the thing along the way. Come make you rock on each and every dick and that's about the one to tell you that someday, tell it to me right now. Someday, somebody will make you cry. Baby, it's true that you want to
Big Youth's first major hit, the one that announced to the reggae world that a new DJ sensation had arrived on the scene, came through another struggling grassroots ghetto producer by the name of Keith Hudson. Hudson had earlier had success with DJs U-Roy and Dennis Al Capone and offered a broke Big Youth the chance to come and record for him. Hudson was also a former dentist who was reportedly responsible for implanting the red, gold, and green caps in Big Youth's front teeth. Together, they would repair to Dynamic Studio to record a song called S90 Skank, sometimes misspelled on record as Ace 90, extolling the virtues of a Honda motorcycle called the S90 or Sport 90. But Big Youth warning in his lyrics that if you ride like lightning, then you crash like thunder. In other words, be safe out on the roads. And to drive home the point with a rebellious sense of energy, they concocted the idea to wheel an actual motorcycle from the street into the recording booth, reportedly when studio owner Byron Lee wasn't around, wasn't looking, and over a spoken word intro facilitated with Big Youth's friend, another ghetto hustler by the name of Trevor Lego Beast Douglas. They revved the engine and created an instant smash hit. S90 Skank put Big Youth firmly on the map. Here is the original single on the giant label, Ace 90 Skank by Big Youth.
Yeah, Lion, you, Zion. I'm on a hook here, you know. I'm on the boss, you know. Right now, with the whole eye. With the wild. Right on. Highway. But don't you ride like lightning? Man, if you ride like lightning, it'll flash like thunder. So come down along the way, now the summer little ways out there.
The smash success of S90 Skank saw Big Youth in demand by more and more producers, yet still struggling to achieve a significant financial reward for his efforts. One who did manage to catch him on a few sides at this time was producer Glenn Brown, yet another of these hustling grassroots level independent producers who caught Big Youth on a series of 7-inch singles such as Double Attack, Spider to the Fly, and Opportunity Rock, all included on Double Attack, the Pantomime DJ collection, Pantomime, Glenn Brown's label. This came out on Green Sleeves Records. Double Attack itself, a Big Youth song, and all those songs included on here. Next up, one of the legends of the 1960s, one of the major players of that decade, Prince Buster, would recruit Big Youth, recording him on a handful of sides, including Chi Chi Run, Leave Your Skeng, and a couple of others. He didn't have enough sides by Big Youth to create a full LP, but that did not stop him from issuing Chi Chi Run around 1972. Some consider this Big Youth's debut LP, but it is not entirely his vocal performances. Prince Buster had to add some other songs by John Holt and others. There's even another DJ, Big Youth imitator by the name of Little Youth, but the cover attributed to Big Youth featuring his photo on the front, issued in 1972 on Prince Buster's label. This is a reissue from the early 2000s. Big Youth's Chi Chi Run as recorded for Prince Buster.
And love is lovely, you know. And love not to rock, and love not to walls. Come to those who don't love to rock the most. And he went out himself, so surely be obeyed.
Ever since you went away, every day is such a cloudy day. And
But baby, if you fall off a race, it's a big disgrace. And look at that, you're off a race, so you will have to hide your face.
Christmas morning of 1972 found Big Youth's song S90 Skank with producer Keith Hudson at the top of the Jamaican charts. That day he was also performing at a stage show at downtown Kingston's Carib Theatre, and as he did so, he pulled off his hat on stage to reveal his dreadlocks before the audience. May seem a simple act, but at this time, the wearing of dreadlocks, open adherence to the Rastafari faith, seen as something very much to be kept, if not completely hidden, definitely kept discreet. Big Youth threw that to the wind, openly declared his adherence to the faith before the crowd, the audience, and the world at large, caused a sensation, was seen as something of a revolutionary, defiant act, and would become a trademark of his stage shows. He had already begun recording with an up-and-coming producer by the name of Augustus Gussie Clarke, who had earlier released the debut album by another DJ, I-Roy, as Gussie presenting I-Roy. Gussie Clarke had a small sound system, was also cutting dub plates for other producers, trading back and forth for basic instrumental rhythm tracks in somewhat of the barter system of the time that he could then place vocalists over, new vocals over top of. That was how he had put together the I-Roy album, and he would begin working with Big Youth in much the same way, initially with a song called The Killer, versioning over Horace Andy's Skylarking rhythm track that had originally been done at Studio One. The next series of sides recorded with Gussie Clarke would form the basis of what many consider Big Youth's true debut LP, one that announced for all time that a new force in DJing had arrived, Screaming Target by Big Youth. The title track itself, versioning over singer Casey White's cover of Don Penn's No No No, and beginning with another kind of humorous spoken intro between Big Youth and another man talking about films, the other man recommending Dirty Harry, the Clint Eastwood vehicle, before Big Youth says, "No, I saw this other film at the Carib Theatre. It was way better. It was called Screaming Target." Many have tried to figure out what that film was. Apparently it was an Oliver Reed film called Sitting Target that was renamed Screaming Target for its Jamaican release. And that was on a version of the No 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 rhythm as voiced by Casey White. Here's the 7-inch single release on Gussie Clarke's Puppy label. So named reportedly because of his young age at the time, barely 20 years old, already a music producer, and backed by the band called Simplicity People. Big Youth's Screaming Target, title track of his true debut album. Another song by Casey White that Big Youth would toast his lyrics over was a Casey White cover of a obscure US soul song by Gene Chandler and Barbara Acklin called Anywhere But Nowhere. which appeared on the Impact label. Gussie Clarke would obtain a cut of that rhythm track, and Big Youth would toast over it, making reference to the nursery rhyme character Solomon Grundy before quoting from the Bible, saying, "The Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the other dwelling places of Jacob," mixing nursery rhymes and Bible verses in sort of a free-flowing, freestyling melange. Big Youth overflowing with ideas, with lyrics at this point. Elsewhere on the album, he would version over songs by Dennis Brown, beginning to strengthen that connection with that singer, who was then very much on the rise. Also Gregory Isaacs, who was also already friendly with. A further cut of the Anywhere But Nowhere song would appear as Leah Lowe. Big Youth just forming nonsensical words to form a new kind of music, verbal music over the rhythm track he was toasting over. Tippertone Rock, writing a Roman Stewart song, paid affectionate tribute to the sound system that he had rose to prominence on. Honesty over Lloyd Parks's Slaving Rhythm sees Big Youth declaring that honesty is the best policy, throwing in social commentary alongside nonsensical doggerel words, made-up phrases, biblical quotes. Big Youth's debut album, Screaming Target. I'm going to leave you with some clips. My look at Big Youth will continue in the next chapter. This was a great classic essential debut album, which was released on Trojan in the UK and on the dynamic subsidiary Jaguar and on one of Gussie Clarke's own labels in Jamaica. Big Youth's first internationally released album. This is a Sunspot reissue from 2010. A classic, essential DJ album, but there was even greater things to come from Big Youth. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 of my look at Big Youth.
Yeah, youth. Aight. I decide to move it dirty, Harry. Aight, but watch ya, man. Wednesday gone, I man forward up a carry. And I man sight one eye. Sure, that one a rain can dirty, Harry, I tell you. You know? This one called Screaming Targets out there, you know? Some stars screaming targets out there, you know? Baba Rain, cause I'm the Baba Callide, you know? No. What do you say, no? Well, I say, yeah. Cause you should never say no. See that brothers over there? See all the time. The Bible said the times real high temperature 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Come on, I tell it's real hot. Can it's the sound of quality put on a rockin'. Come people when you're coming down, you gotta put on your stocking. Come it's a tip for make a round so. Come on, God. Come in to deep or make you come so. Can I will tell you send a bond? Beware. So baby gotta be sincere. That's how we did it.
I can go anywhere and still be nowhere.
Cause anywhere couldn't be nowhere. So anywhere that you can go and that to be nowhere. Because Solomon a Gunday, he was born on a Monday, the Christian on a Tuesday. And so we tell you about the thing of God, Solomon, about the Solomon a Gunday.